I knew before I opened that door. Not because of anything dramatic. Not because of a tip-off, or a mysterious text, or a gut feeling that arrived like a lightning bolt. I knew because of a receipt. A receipt for a restaurant I had never been to. On a night he had told me he was working late. For 2 people. With a bottle of wine I would have remembered ordering. I found it in his jacket pocket on a Sunday morning while I was doing the laundry. I stood in our utility room holding that small piece of paper for a very long time. And then I put it back exactly where I found it. I finished the laundry. I made breakfast. I sat across from my husband at our kitchen table, and I watched him eat his eggs, and I smiled when he smiled, and I said nothing. Because I had decided something in that utility room. I was not going to confront him with a receipt. I was going to know everything before I said a single word. My name is Rachel. I am 39 years old. I am a project manager from Edinburgh, and I am going to tell you the story of the 3 weeks between finding that receipt and the night I walked into a hotel lobby and ended my marriage in front of everyone. Mark and I had been together for 9 years, married for 6. We had built what looked from the outside like a genuinely good life. A house we both loved, friends we had made together, holidays we had planned and taken and remembered fondly. The kind of marriage that people commented on at dinner parties. You two seem so solid. We were solid. Or I thought we were. The receipt was for a Thursday evening 6 weeks before I found it. I know the exact date because I checked my own diary. That Thursday I had been at a work conference in Glasgow. I had called Mark from my hotel room that evening. He had sounded normal, warm even. He asked how the conference was going. He said he had eaten at his desk because he was swamped with a deadline. He had not eaten at his desk. He had eaten at a restaurant called Blank in the new town, with a bottle of Chablis, and someone who was not me. I did not fall apart. That surprised me. I had always imagined that if I ever discovered something like this, it would be immediate and dramatic and completely devastating. Instead, I felt something much cooler than that. A kind of precise and focused clarity that I did not recognize in myself. I needed to know who. I needed to know how long. And I needed to know the full truth before I made a single move. I started paying attention differently. Not obsessively. Not in a way that changed my behavior enough for him to notice. I was careful about that. I kept our evenings normal. I kept our conversations normal. I kept everything exactly as it had been. But I started noticing things I had been not noticing before. His phone. He had always been relaxed about his phone. Left it on the counter. Answered it in front of me. No particular privacy around it. In the weeks after I found the receipt, he started being more careful. Not dramatically, but slightly. A slight angle away from me when a message came in. A quicker pocket movement than before. His schedule. He had always been predictable about his working late evenings. Tuesday was his late night. Always had been. Team meeting followed by client calls. Suddenly there were Thursday late nights appearing. And one Wednesday. And once a Sunday afternoon visit to the office that lasted 4 hours. His mood. And this was the strangest part. Slightly happier than usual. Not in a way that anyone else would notice. But I had been married to this man for 6 years. I knew his baseline. He was slightly lighter. Slightly more energetic. The way people are when something in their life is going well. Something in his life was going well. It just was not our life. I found her name in week 2. He had a work contacts list on our shared family computer. Something we had set up years ago for practical reasons. He had been careful about his phone, but he had forgotten about the computer. I was not snooping. I was looking for a restaurant booking we had made months earlier, and I went into his email to find the confirmation. Instead, I found her. Her name was Sophie. She worked at a company his firm had been consulting for. Their emails went back 7 months. 7 months of what started as professional correspondence and then became something else, so gradually that the shift was almost invisible unless you were reading carefully. I read carefully. By the time I had finished, I knew everything I needed to know. 7 months. Started as work. Became personal somewhere around month 3. The restaurant receipt had been month 6. I closed the computer. I went upstairs. I sat on the edge of our bed in the room we had shared for 6 years. And I made a plan. I am a project manager. Planning is what I do. I plan things carefully and thoroughly, and I do not move until I am ready. That is how I approach everything in my life. And it is how I decided to approach this. I needed one more piece of information. I needed to know when they were next meeting. I found out on a Thursday morning. He told me he had a client dinner that evening. He had never mentioned this client before. He gave me the name of a restaurant that I looked up immediately. It did not exist. I said, "Sounds good. Have a nice evening." He kissed me on the cheek and left for work. I called my sister. I told her everything. She came over immediately and sat with me while I got ready. And she held my hand at the door when I left and she said, "Whatever happens in there, you already know everything you need to know about who you are." I took a taxi to the city centre. I walked into the lobby of the hotel where I had tracked the booking. The same hotel that appeared in one of his emails as their regular meeting place. And I stood just inside the entrance for a moment. They were at the bar. Mark had his back to me. Sophie was facing me. She saw me first. I watched her expression change. I watched her say something to Mark. I watched him turn around. The look on his face when he saw me is something I will carry with me for a very long time. Not guilt, not even shock, just collapse. Like every version of the story he had been telling himself simultaneously fell apart. I walked across that lobby and I stood in front of them and I said, "I found the receipt 6 weeks ago. I know everything. I want you to come home now so we can talk." I did not shout. I did not cry. I did not make a scene. I just said what needed to be said clearly and in full. Mark stood up. He said Sophie's name once. I do not know what he meant by it, and I did not wait to find out. I turned and I walked back across that lobby, and I went outside, and I stood on the pavement, and I took the first full breath I had taken in 3 weeks. He came out 2 minutes later. We went home. We talked for most of the night. He told me everything, more than I had already found out, which I had not thought was possible. He cried. He apologized. He said he did not know how it had happened. He said all the things. I listened to all of it. And at 4 a.m, I told him I wanted him to leave. He left. The divorce took 8 months. It was not dramatic. It was just the careful dismantling of a life we had built together. Dividing things that had seemed indivisible and finding that almost everything could be separated cleanly if you were methodical enough about it. I kept the house. That mattered to me more than anything else. I had chosen every piece of furniture in it. I was not going to leave my own home, because he had made a choice I had not been consulted about. The thing people ask me most when I tell this story is whether I regret waiting 3 weeks instead of confronting him immediately. I do not regret it for a single second, because walking into that lobby knowing everything, having done the work, having gathered the full picture, having made my decision before he had any chance to shape the narrative, meant that I was never in a position of being managed or minimized, or having pieces of the truth rationed out to me one at a time. I had the truth, all of it, before I walked in, and I walked in on my terms. That is the only way I know how to do anything. It has been 2 years. I am in a good place, not a perfect place. Divorce leaves marks that do not fully fade, but a genuinely good place, honest and clear and entirely my own. I still have the receipt. I kept it. not as a reminder of what he did, as a reminder of what I did with what I found. I found a small piece of paper in a jacket pocket on a Sunday morning, and I decided before I said a single word that I was going to walk out of whatever came next with the full truth and my dignity completely intact. I did both.